Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Tom, and today we are going to be wrapping up the penultimate month of the year, November. And, just as a whole, I think November was an absolutely amazing month, but more for reasons outside of my reading than my reading itself. I had some good reads, but I didn't end up actually reading a whole lot. A lot of things happened in November that took away from reading time, including the Sun Eater Gala, including Thanksgiving, which are two, amazing things. Get to spend time with family, friends, meet so many people, and so it was all worth it in the end, but not the most epic reading month, which is fine. But the first thing I finished in the month of November was Disquiet Gods. This was the last book I needed to read in order to be caught up for the Sun Eater Gala. And if you were paying attention there, yes, that is Chris Verrocchio's signature on my homemade covers, which is still going to be one of the highlights of the year for me. It's just absolutely epic on what happened here. Now, for Disquiet Gods itself, the book itself, this is still a book where I'm not sure where I rank it inside of Sun Eater for me. And I think it's more a Sun Eater thing than an individual book thing, because I think Sun Eater is just so good. I have a hard time really ranking a lot of the middle books. So for me, Howling Dark is my number one. I think that book just truly was so special to me. It just did so many things that worked on like such a great level for me. And then Empire of Silence is my least favorite, but it's still a really good book. I just think the series expands and grows so much from that first book. And then all of those other books, so Demon in White, Ashes of Man, Kingdoms of Death, and Disquiet Gods, all just like when I think about one, I start to put it higher up the list. And when I think about another one, and then all of a sudden I'm pushing another one up the list. So I still, to this day, do not have like my real concrete expectations or ranking of what I have of Sun Eater, which if you know me, that's weird because I rank everything I read. I have a spreadsheet where I track my reading and multiple things. And there are some people I met at the Sun Eater Gala that have way better spreadsheets than I do. But like, this is the kind of person I am. I'm like, I make a decision and that's where it is. And not that I'm inflexible. I do move things around and I have that flexibility for myself. But Sun Eater has just been such an interesting experience of like, man, if I really think about it, maybe this one is better. And, like Kingdoms of Death, the more I think about it, like as down bad as that book was and the things that happened in it are like sad and depressing. I don't know, I kind of keep moving that one up. But then I think, well, is it really better than Demon White and all this stuff that happens there with the ending of that book and just like this avalanche of stuff that happens and this crescendo of it ending and just like these epic moments. And so I think that just as a whole gives the idea. And then Disquiet Gods, I think, is the epitome of that because it has everything in those other books in it. So all of those great moments, the mind-bending stuff that like I can't say because it's spoilers and everything. And Disquiet God has all of that. And so when I sit back and I really reflect on my reading experience with this, I do wonder if reading everything back to back to back like I did with no real break, I don't want to say lessened my experience, but it makes it feel all more together, like one big story as opposed to individual books that I had time to like sit with. I've noticed that in other series where I've kind of just gone through a lot of them at one time. Some of those later Expanse books, they're all just kind of like one big story, and it's harder for me to like split differences off between them. Wheel of Time is the best example of this, where like I think I read the last 6 books with nothing in between, maybe, or something very close to that. So like, it's really hard for me to like start to differentiate and everything. And that's kind of how I feel with Sun Eater as a whole. But what I will say, let me talk a little bit specifically about Disquiet Gods because I've got them in all over the place. It's fantastic. I can see why people wouldn't like this because it kind of takes something that has been more in the periphery and really puts it center stage and kind of starts explaining some of it. I don't want to say it's not the same way as like a Sanderson explaining his magic, but we are starting to see deeper and we're starting to see things that you can't see without being elevated at a higher level, right? And I can see why maybe you wouldn't like that. But for me, I think it fits in so well thematically, structurally, and just everything that Hadrian's journey has been leading to. I think it just flows very nicely into this book. There are definitely some things that happen in Disquiet Gods that I was not ready for at all. But I think that's what makes it so good. And I think the more I sit with it, the more I appreciate that book. And, it's hard to not appreciate it when like I finished it. And then later that week I was in Raleigh for the Sun Eater Gala with, meeting so many amazing people, getting to meet Christopher, just all of these things I think just really push this series forward for me and everything. And so we will talk a little bit about Shadows Upon Time later in this video because I'm not done with it just yet. But Disquiet Gods was the first thing that I finished. And the second thing that I finished in the month of November, not related at all to Sun Eater because I needed something a little different and something shorter. And that is the short story, The Body by Stephen King. This is, the more I think about it, something that I really appreciate more and more. I said when I first talked about this book that Stephen King, especially in this novella, has this ability to write and express feelings and emotions that I feel are universal to a lot of people. Obviously, universal would mean everybody, and there are probably some people who don't feel some of these same things. But to me, it was. To me, it was like these fundamental feelings and emotions I have, especially when I think about when I was younger, that he's able to express in a way that I think just works so well. And like as somebody who I don't think I could do that, like I don't think I could express myself in that way. It's just amazing to read this and be like, I know exactly the feeling you're describing right now, and that is exactly how I wish I knew how to describe it beforehand. And it's such a short story. It's very, there are some very deep things in it, but like on the surface level, it's just like we're going on an adventure. That is the literally like the most basic premise you could give this book is we're just going on an adventure to find something. But there's so much more deeper things that are just like explored and expressed, and they're not always necessarily easy things, and they're definitely things that looking back as an adult, I know that I had these thoughts and feelings, but like you don't really understand them at the time. You're too young to really grasp what your mind is maybe trying to tell you about people, about situations, about what is going on in the world. And yet this book is able to bring forth some of those things. And it just is, once again, a masterclass of Stephen King. I know he does not work for everybody. There are some, like he has some weird things about his writing, and like he can just go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with the book, and it feels so out of place. But for me, all those little things, learning about the world and the people in it just works so well for me. And once again, I keep saying he is like climbing higher enough my rankings of my favorite authors of all time, and that's a list I should put together at some point. And at this point, like it's going to be so hard for him not to be like so far up that list. It's really a truly special thing. I feel like I need to read just a little bit more for him to be like tops of it, but I feel like he's getting so close there, and it's almost one of those things where I'm like trying to push him off instead of like just to like I don't want to go with that too soon, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so Stephen King, that was technically supposed to be like a horror read, I think, in October, and I got around to it in November, which is the same thing for the final thing that I finished novel-wise this month, and that is The Crypt of the Moon Spider. This was originally, like I said, supposed to be a horror read, and it was. This is definitely I don't want to say it's scary, but it's definitely horrific. There are all kinds of really creepy, gross kind of things that happen in it. If you don't like spiders, like this is going to drive you absolutely insane. Like the name of the title definitely is descriptive of some of the things that happen in this story. And this again was something very nice and short for me to read in between Disquiet Gods and Shadows Upon Time and just some of the very long things that I plan on reading. It was nice to kind of break up some of that smaller stuff going on. So I can't say too much because, like I said, 89 pages, but basically somebody is going to get help for depression, basically. And it is quite the turn as it goes. It has an interesting time that it happens in with a different level of technology, and then that's what's associated with the time period. And just, all those little things that I think make it a fun story. I had a good time with it. And it's one of those horror books where, I said this before, but sometimes horror, it wants to be psychological horror where I'm like scratching my head of like trying to understand what's going on instead of just like experiencing what's going on. And this is very much I'm experiencing what's going on, even though I think it's playing with some things. I think it's kind of straightforward in a way. So, so far I kind of recommend everything that I read. That one, obviously a little more specific if you want something that is in the more horror genre than anything else. And then that does actually take us to the last thing that I finished this month, and it's actually a comic book. So I know not everybody's a comic book fan, but I finally got around to reading this, and this was just so great. This is the Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. And I went into this with relatively low expectations just because, when you get this many properties just kind of being mashed up together, like, I don't know, you think it's kind of maybe a cash grab kind of thing, but it got me hook, line, and sinker. I love Godzilla. I love the Justice League. Superman's my favorite superhero. And at worst, I figured the artwork would be like really good in this. And that is for sure. The artwork in here, like if we can just start there, was absolutely amazing. But I actually think the story in here was a lot of fun. And sometimes that goes a really long way, especially in something that was as short as this. I think this was a 7-issue comic run. So it's not that it's super long or anything, but I think the story was fun. And I just had like a great time going through it, seeing the art, seeing it's mostly battles, right? It's a fight, and seeing it happen over the course of this comic was a really good time. And if you're somebody who's never read a comic book, I think this is actually a decent one that you could pick up and just be like, what's all this about? You don't need to know a lot of lore or anything like that. There are some things that if you're like really familiar with superheroes, it probably helps a little bit. But like for the most part, it's like inciting action. This is what happens. Bunch of fights. How do we solve this problem? We find the solution to the problem. Big battle. End of the story. And it's just like a lot of fun. And so, like I said, and the artwork, it's just beautiful. Absolutely stunning. And then that leads me to the 2 books that I'm still working on. And this one, this is Grand Conspiracy by Junior Words. I expect to be working on this one for a little bit longer. Hopefully I can finish it sooner than later. This is book 5 in a series. If you haven't read Jenny Wirtz, highly recommend it. You can start with some of her standalone stuff. You don't have to start right with the series, even though I think it is really good. And I'm just excited to get more and more into this. Every time I read Jenny Wirtz, she is, like Stephen King, would be on that list of my favorite writers. I've read enough from her that I can say that pretty easily at this point. I think what she's able to do with words, just like King is, 2 different ways that they do it, 2 different ways that they tell stories, but just masters of their craft, right? And I really appreciate that from both of them. And so getting deeper and deeper into this, man, this story hits the ground running, that's for sure. Just some really awesome stuff with characters that I was glad to see again, and so much. I'm just really enjoying it. And, the only thing that slows me down is the fact that it is a physical book and I have to sit down and physically read it, which is just something that I don't have as much time as I would like to have, which is very unfortunate and a bad excuse. And I just probably need to spend less time on the internet and focus on my reading. That would probably help a lot. And then that leads me to the final thing that I'm still working on. And this one I will probably finish pretty soon. I think I know my bookmark is not in the right place because I'm listening to this one. That is Shadows Upon Time. I think I'm probably closer to like halfway through this one. And man, this one, like I was saying, Disquiet Gods, it takes everything from this that the series has been working and building on and having pieces of it. And that is even more prevalent here in Shadows Upon Time. I've been blown away by some of the revelations that we've gotten. It makes some of the things that we've learned about this universe just mean so much more to me. I'm having such a good time with it. I'm so glad that I finally caught up on the series. I know there are people who have already finished this. I've seen some reviews out and everything. And I'm really excited to go back and see what a lot of the discussion is going to be about this book, because I think there are some things in this story that I could see people not liking, that maybe it's going to feel heavy-handed or that it's leaning into something too much. And I'm not going to say what that is, but I have a feeling that could be something people don't like. And I'm very interested to see how that goes, because for me, it's working brilliantly. I'm enjoying it so much. And I'm actually doing a pretty good job of trying to avoid what anybody is saying about it, because I don't want how I feel about this and some of what I'm going to consider are probably going to be more controversial things that are happening in the book. I don't want my opinion to be swayed one way or the other. I just kind of really want to have my own pure experience with it. And so far, it has been just so good for me. And like I said, it feels like there's so much left that needs to happen that I'm not sure how it gets wrapped up in the amount of pages that we have, which is crazy because this is a stupid long book. But yeah, it's really good, and I'm so excited to see what happens and how we get to what we get to. I think everybody kind of knows at this point what happens at the end of Sun Eater, because it gets spoiled in like the first page of the first book. But I'm just really interested to see. And like I said, Sun Eater Gala, last time I'll probably mention it, but super awesome to anybody who was there. It was great meeting everybody, talking with everybody, hanging out, shutting down bars, all that fun stuff. It was just a really good time. And then let's see, is there anything else I want to talk about? Oh yeah, I have finally started watching the new seasons of Stranger Things. I feel like I'm a little late, because I feel like most people watch those first 4 episodes the day it came out, and this is obviously a couple days later. And I have 1 episode left, and I'm really enjoying it. I think some people kind of fell out of love with it. Was it season 3 that people didn't like, or season 2 is maybe the one that's not nearly as good? But I have been kind of all in on Stranger Things. I thought season 4 was absolutely fantastic, and I'm super excited to see what ends up happening here at the end. I think the rest of the season, when it comes out in December, which is so annoying that they're doing it that way, either give us a week at a time or just drop it all. Don't do this weird half and half thing. But I think the rest of the episodes I've heard are like super long, like almost movie length. And if that's the case, that's going to be a lot of good content. And I'm very excited for more Stranger Things. And then, if we're going to talk about watching stuff, just the depressing state of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's an absolute travesty and an affront to football. And it makes me very sad. It's really hard to watch them be as bad as they are. They just lost to the Bills today. And that offense, it's like, oh my God. I don't need to go too far into that, because I will go and go. But I hope you had a good Thanksgiving if you are in the States and do the Thanksgiving stuff. I hope you had a fantastic reading month, better than mine, even though, like I said, mine was really good, just not a whole lot of variety. Well, actually, I did have a good amount of variety, just not a lot of different stuff. And then, yeah, definitely let me know all of that down below in the comments, or as always, you can message me on the Discord that is linked in the description. But that's all for me. And remember, read what you want when you want.